All right, folks, over here at the A Tab, we've got a Paul and Murray event, but I'm here to turn it over to Jacoby and Rick Rosner, and who knows, Sasha Starr and others may join as well and see what they've got to say about world politics. We know we've got a debate coming up very shortly, and all along those lines. So I've got Rick with me, I've got Jacoby with me, and I've got Sasha Starr. So I'm going to bring them in, and I'm going to disappear because we've got things going on here at the center and all along those lines. So definitely turn it over to the folks that are knowledgeable and all in that space. So definitely got Jacoby, and like I said, we're going to bring in Sasha Starr as well, who's over there in Canada, and turn it over to these fine folks and all along those lines. So definitely glad to do that and turn it over to them and all along those lines. So definitely we're going to drop on out and let them have this full conversation and all in that space. But Rick, I'm gonna turn it over to you and
No,
Jacoby and
absolutely not.
Sasha and
I
see what
mean,
y'all got to
everything
say
I
about the
said is
world. I might
correct.
pop
It's
in
how the
later,
American
but yeah,
people
we're
feel.
honoring
It's what we
Polly
know to be
Murray
a fact.
and all along
It's all
those
the
lines. I'm
evidence
going to get on
has been
out of here.
proven true. We have Jamie Raskin in there accusing us of worshiping Trump, worshiping as a convicted felon. He is a convicted felon. Well, yeah. So is George Floyd. And everybody, and you all too, the media worship George Floyd. Democrats worship George Floyd. There were riots burning down the fucking country over George Floyd, and Raskin is in there saying we worship him. Excuse me, let me correct you, and this is really important. I don't worship, I worship God. God. And Jesus is my savior. I don't worship President Trump. And I'm really sick and tired of the bullshit annex I have to deal with constantly from the Democrats. So that's what we just went through in there. And then they're sitting there.
No. All right. Okay.
That was weird.
Yeah, it was. So I can I start with a book report?
Go for it.
All right. So I just read the book Nuclear War by Annie Jacobson, which is she's a Pulitzer nominated journalist, and she spent the past few years talking to everybody, like there some of the talking to people from the whole history of determining our nuclear deterrence policy from the earliest days, because these guys are like almost 100 years old, but a lot of them are still alive. And she explains how if somebody wants to lob a nuclear missile at us, all our deterrence policies are liable to fail. In her book, she shows what would happen if Kim Jong-un fired just one nuclear missile at us, and it leads to just an escalating, series of exchanges that pretty much wipes out all life in the northern hemisphere. 5 billion people dead within, an hour. And like one of the things that surprised me is if North Korea threw a missile at us and we decided to respond with a couple nuclear missiles, they would have to travel across Russian airspace, and Russia's ability to tell the difference between missiles aimed at them and aimed at North Korea is really bad. So and all this is a little bit relevant because yesterday Trump said that when he's president again, he's going to build an Iron Dome defense against nuclear weapons. And this book goes into great detail on how that is impossible. Right now, we only have 44 nuclear interceptors. These are missiles that are supposed to go up and crash into nuclear missiles and knock them out. But even when they run these tests, each individual missile only has a 50% chance of hitting its target. And that's without the decoy fake missiles launched by a real enemy. That every nuclear warhead, when the boosters drop away, it releases one nuke at least, sometimes more than one, but then a bunch of things that look like nukes. So even if an enemy launched, I don't know, as few as like 3 or 4 missiles at us, they're traveling at 14,000 miles an hour compared to the missiles that Israel's able to intercept. They're traveling at what, maybe 1,200 miles an hour. So we don't have the technology to do it. Trump is full of crap.
He's always full of crap. And that's the same dude who said that he would drop a nuclear bomb in a hurricane to stop the hurricane. The man just doesn't understand, and his MAGA crowd will just ride along with anything that he says. And that's the scariest part. Because I think we talked about it before, how we talked about Project 2025. They don't care about what he does. They just care that he makes liberals mad.
Yep.
And that's it. They don't care that he is a rapist. They don't care that he's a convicted felon, convicted fraud. They don't care. They'll defend him tooth and nail.
Actually, lately he started to turn away even the Republicans because they, through even Fox News or so on, they listen to something. So they are aware of the court in New York that put him as a convicted felon. And what's interesting is that they all deny that there was a fair election in 2020. So the election was sort of crooked, and the conviction is also not right. So everything was happening in America when it concerns Donald Trump, something is not working properly. The election is stolen, and the Democrats were about to put him in jail, and this is so crooked. Even 80% of Republicans would agree with that, but not 100. You cannot find so many fools among Republicans. It's just impossible. Okay, 80%. But 80% of his base is not enough for him to win election. Now he started to lose one by one all independents and all this states, 6 or 7 states, when there's like battleground states. He's going to lose them one by one. I'm not even talking about women issue or abortion issue and all this. There are just too many things to talk about Trump, whereas he's a fraud, he's a liar, he's a rapist, and he's a convicted felon. So how much do you need really for him for people to understand? Well, wait a moment. Okay, Biden is an old man. Okay, he's hardly can walk, although he still can walk, believe it or not. Or he cannot speak. Well, listen to next week's.
But the debate is 1 week from now.
Yeah, we'll find out whether he can speak or not. I have a question whether Trump can speak. That's a question. Because his vocabulary is on the level of 12 years old. And a lot of issues he doesn't even comprehend. He cannot answer any question, whatever he will be asked.
But there are at least 2 things that go against Trump in the debate. One is they cut off your mic when you're not responding to a question. So he's going to have a harder time interrupting. He can still yell. He doesn't need a mic to talk over, but it'll make it a little tougher. And there's no audience to cheer for stuff.
So there's no reason for him to yell.
I mean, it's going to be interesting because not only of everything that you said, but I think one of the things I was watching one commentator talk about it the other day, and they actually pointed out a true fact. I mean, a true fact. That's a redundant statement, but they pointed out something very true, is that the worst thing that could have happened to Trump did in this situation, because he's leading in the polls and everything else. The worst thing that could have happened is that, one, the delay and the end of court cases. He's not in the courtroom, so he's able to go out and campaign. He's agitated and aggravated so people can hear how crazy he talks now. And so people are going to get people are wanting, I truthfully think a lot of people in the independent area want some semblance of sanity, some semblance of governance. And when Trump talks, and the more exposed this whole Project 2025 is and how crazy it really is, that's starting to scare a lot of the independents away. And it's starting to, well, the Democrats who were thinking about voting for him are now just thinking about staying home. But it gives an opportunity for Biden to turn the polls towards him. So this debate is going to be really, really interesting because, yeah, if Biden strings two words together, everybody's going to say, well, look, they lied, and it's going to be good for Biden.
Well,
Trump is going to be Trump.
We don't know if the debate's only 90 minutes.
Yep.
And he in the past, you know, when they do surveys about who won the debate, he never wins a debate. I don't think but surveys don't matter. You know, when you poll people, but the deal is like we know, like when he has a rally, he can say whatever crazy crap he wants, and it doesn't matter because his people like him anyway. But if his people, I mean his staff, yell at him for the next week and say you can't talk crazy, can he keep his shit together for 90 minutes? If he can fake being not crazy for that long, you know, he could.
So I don't think he can do that because that's where I think he's going to get exposed due to, like, when the teleprompter went out on him in, what was it, in some Florida, was it the Florida one that he went off on the electrocution and everything? That was because the teleprompter disappeared. When the teleprompter goes away and he has to shoot from the hip, he goes down crazy town. And he's not going to have a teleprompter. He's not going to have anybody to tell him what to say. He's going to have to just talk. And that happened when he met with the business leaders. And those business leaders, those investors, there was a report that came from that meeting. Because remember, he's just trying to get these investors to like him and to understand that they felt shaken by him talking because he meandered. He just went. And so I think that's going to get exposed. Of course, with the spin and everything else, that's going to, oh, well, Biden stumbled over a word. That's going to be the big spin out of the right wing. But I think for independents and those that are just kind of on the fence, which I don't think there are a whole bunch on the fence, but I think those independents are going to see this man is crazy. This man has no idea what he's talking about.
I mean, I hope so, but I mean, we don't know till it happens.
True. Very true.
So Sasha, this book I read, and actually the director of Dune just optioned it to turn it into like the most depressing movie ever, nuclear war. What do you think about Putin deploying a nuclear weapon? Probably not, right?
No, it's a little bit more complicated this time because before, if you deploy nuclear weapons, he would be destroyed instantly by the counter-offensive strike by United States and all the Western powers. Now the situation is somewhat different. They signed some kind of a treaty with North Korea. So it could not be just Russia or Russia at all. It could be North Korea who will fire nuclear missiles into the United States, for example. Right now, they don't have technologies. They don't have. They have only 17 missiles, like mid-range, so to speak. They will not be able to reach continental.
Well, according to this book, North Korea has used imported or stolen technology, and it now has the capacity to reach the East Coast, to Washington, D.C.
Is it a fact that somebody verified?
Well, I mean, she's a reporter. She's been, she's written 6 books. Everything she talks about is sourced. Of course, it's hard to get information out of North Korea. They're very, insular, and it's but
No, what you're proposing, I've never heard from anybody else. So it's
well, but
not.
she says,
not
I mean, she says that plus, she in this book she has North Korea launching one missile to Washington D.C., but then another missile to to the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant in California, and we know for sure that they can reach California.
Okay, even if they can reach California, never mind the East Coast, I don't think that they have a lot of accuracy, whatever missiles they operate. Not at the moment. Now, with Russian help in the foreseeable future, they can acquire that technology. And then it would look somewhat dangerous because this guy, he's. No, okay. So he wants to leave. He doesn't want to die right away. But still, he's crazy enough that he may do it. And even Putin, in certain circumstances, he can unleash it. Now, what's a dangerous situation is that now it's alliance. It's the same like a NATO, but only two countries. Russia, China will not join that crazy alliance because China wants to continue to trade. They want to slowly get more and more control in the world about all African countries and Asia, just name it. So China is not part of it, 100%. Now, Putin did strategically. I think it's quite clever thing. You can laugh all your way to suggest that Putin he's about to become a partner with the insane dictator, and that this is really horrible thing. But it doesn't matter. It's happened, and how to rectify it and how to fix it. In my opinion, uh, you have to destroy Russia. You have no other choice.
But if you destroy Russia, then we get destroyed too, because I
Not
mean,
really. No, not really. There were investigations about a couple of years ago about nuclear war and what it is and what's going to happen as a result. Estimation is that there will be 500 million people dead and a billion people wounded, sick as a result of radiation, and so on. So it's not the end of the world, but
it's kind of the I mean, because the U.S. will be knocked back. Like it takes just uh, one or two nuclear weapons detonated a couple hundred miles above the U.S. to knock out all our electricity, the entire grid, and f up all our devices.
And that's the light case because a nuclear detonation deals with radiation as well.
Yeah.
yeah, I
So
mentioned radiation. Well, what I would like to tell you is that the existing, the air defense of the United States, it will knock down about 50% of the incoming missiles.
but if Russia launches 1,000 missiles, then 500 still get through, and 200 million Americans die immediately, and then another 100 million die during the nuclear winter over the next 2 years, where all the dust and kicked up drops temperatures across the northern hemisphere by 30 degrees.
Well, this is all not very pretty. I would agree with you. However, if that's what our destiny, you you can't avoid it. It's
Well,
just
we can avoid it. So Reagan,
how
40 years ago, watches a TV miniseries called The Morning After, which is about what would
I
happen.
saw
In
it.
the All right, so Reagan sees this thing and it freaks him out, and he starts negotiating with who was it? Gorbachev was in office at the
No,
time.
that's not true. Gorbachev became
So,
power only in
well,
1985.
who was before
They,
Gorbachev? Brezhnev. There was
they were
Brezhnev.
they were people who were on their way to grave. So you cannot negotiate with anybody who is already one step in graves. That's
Yeah,
why
but what I'm saying,
Brezhnev died in 1982. In 1983, there was undrop of former
Okay,
KGB.
so but Reagan starts negotiating because at one time in the 1960s, between the U.S. and Russia and the Soviet Union, we had 70,000 nuclear warheads, which is just super crazy. But Reagan presidents have been negotiating it down, so now the U.S. is down to 1,700 active warheads, Russia 1,600.
Rick, you're jumping from
Well,
one place to another place. When the day after came out in 1983, there were no negotiations with Soviet Union at that time. Period. In 1984, there were no negotiations of any kind. Period. Not only that, Reagan announced that USSR is an evil empire, and he announced that US will build up the Star Wars system, which completely prevent Russia. So if you call it negotiations, I don't. I think it was a brilliant move on the part of Ronald Reagan, and Russians were scared because they did not have any answer to that, neither technological nor financial, not of any kind. That's why Gorbachev, when he came to power, he said to, why don't we make a peace? We make a peace. And
Okay.
Ronald,
All right, so the Star Wars system that Reagan announced didn't work, but the Soviet hold on, but the Soviet Union didn't know that, and they went on a spending spree, and it bankrupt. According to what I've read,
they did because they couldn't. They just didn't have. You can't imagine what kind of a place it was. Soviet Union by the time that Gorbachev came to power. It was sliding very quickly all the way down. So in 85, it was more or less, okay, it's not so great, but okay, we'll survive. 86 was worse. 87 was much worse. And 88 was impossible. And 89, it was almost...
Yeah, but the Star Wars system, which didn't work,
but nobody knew. Nobody knew at the time. Yeah. There was plan to build one.
But it's 40 years later and we still don't have it, but it still was enough to tip over the Soviet Union and bring it down.
But I think we're at a different time now, though.
We were not building this system for the last 40 years. We didn't give a damn about the system. Everybody was happy that Soviet Union dissolved. Now we are friends. Let's have vodka or so on. People completely disoriented themselves.
But I think we're at a different time now, though, because the tough part about a deterrent now, now Sasha, you can help me out. Didn't Trump pull us out of the nuclear deal with Russia?
Salt talks. Yeah,
that's right. And
then he also pulled us out of the nuclear deal with Iran.
Yeah,
so that's put us in a very, very bad predicament nuclear-wise. And then if you talk about having him and his ilk throughout Congress, also him and we don't know who he shared the top secrets with and all this other stuff. I don't want to go into the conspiracy side of things on that portion. But there's an issue with the Trump mentality that is still sitting within our ethos and our governance. And until we can get that part, until we can fix that part, we're stuck. And it's going to be tough to, we're going to deter Russia because Putin, just like, I hate to say it, just like Netanyahu, Putin is still playing a game to where he can push Trump as the actual president. Wait. Push Trump as the actual president because you know what? That is a benefit for him. So until Trump goes away, I don't think there's any deterrent that's going to push Putin away because Trump can just tell the GOP what to do. Trump can get secrets and share them with Putin. So no, wait.
All right, what else should we talk about here? We're all three of us in different ways do a lot of thinking about AI. You know, Sasha with NVIDIA, Jatovi with video games and everything else, and I think a lot about it. And so does that make the world less dangerous or more dangerous, especially with regard to the potential for nuclear war?
I think potential of nuclear war is now reasonably high without AI, maybe even a little higher with AI. But I don't think that AI is something that will lead us to nuclear wars. There are some other much more important factors. And after what I read a lot about this deal between Russia and North Korea, and in my estimation, the likelihood of a nuclear war substantially increased as a result of it.
You think this will embolden Kim Jong Un to maybe think about like lobbing a nuke at us, which is what starts everything in this nonfiction book showing what would happen?
No, he doesn't care what would happen. He is bold enough even without that deal with Putin. What happened is that his desires are completely different from his actual means to do something. His means are very, 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 I should say, incredibly low compared to what he actually needs to do even some small damage to the United States. He need at least, okay, he has now 17 middle range missiles. He need 5, 6 long range missiles. And those missiles can supply only Russia, nobody else. So if Russia will supply, this is why the West and the United States, they have a very limited windows of opportunity to stop Putin before this crazy North Korean leader will get means in his hands to inflict quite serious damage in the United States. He will not destroy the United States, but damage could be substantial. So right now, I don't know, window of opportunity, I would say probably from 1 year to probably 2 years.
So what would have to happen within that window to
Completely isolate Russia from the rest of the world. Not only from the West, but from the East, from the South, from whatever. Just like treat it as the let's see, remember like coronavirus. This laboratory in Wuhan in China, so they eventually isolated it. Or if you remember Chernobyl nuclear plant, it was completely closed that it could not be interact with anything else outside of it. The same way Russia has to be completely isolated, and you spend, it doesn't matter, trillions or quadruple trillions of dollars, whatever it might cost, but this is a lesser evil than nuclear attack only.
but it doesn't seem likely that that will happen. That seems like something that would take more political will than we have.
Well, the way to isolate, because Sasha's right, Russia does have to be isolated. And the way to isolate it is based off of the treaty that they just made yesterday. China, as you pointed out, China does not want to be, China wants open trade. China wants to dominate economically.
Absolutely.
That is where we could actually create a partnership and actually do a more negotiations with China. Because right now, Russia did make some deals with China. But if you can pull China away from Russia, then you've got Russia only with North Korea and Iran. And that's not going to be, or I'm sorry, it is Iran. That's not really going to be anything that's going to be substantial to threaten, or substantial enough to threaten anything in the West or anything globally. So if you isolate Russia down to those two, Iran is still focused on Hezbollah, Israel, and all the other stuff. And with now the issues where Hezbollah is thinking about attacking Israel from the north, where Israel is pulling troops and stuff from the south, that's going to be Iran's focus. So then if it were down to now you got Russia and North Korea, nobody listens to North Korea as much. They do a lot of saber rattling.
But now it's different story.
Yeah, because they've got the tech from Russia.
Yeah.
But even if you isolate down to those two, I think those are, if it just goes down to those two, I think we'll be able to navigate that situation rather than, Iran, China, Russia. And if China jumps in, that's where the problem comes in, because they've got an economic backing and they've got their hands in a lot more than we really realize. And they're a better economic partner in terms of trading and actually trying to make something happen economically instead of making it adversarial on that end. So I think if we can pull China away from Russia, just as you said, Sasha, that's going to be our big play to isolate Russia.
That's possible, and it should be considered. And see, the problem is that if I have anything to criticize about Biden, that's definitely the foreign policy is his real weakness. Because if you remember Trump, even that was a laughable situation when he was visited this North Korea, this idiot, and so on. You could laugh at it, but at least there were visible action trying U.S. to benefit U.S. It didn't work out at the end of the day, but at least it was visible action. Now, what's Biden doing for the last 2 years since the war started in Ukraine? It was very, it's okay. You can call it a pragmatic way to react. A pragmatic way was that okay, U.S. is not part of the war. Okay, it's fine. U.S. gave some weapons to Ukraine, just about enough to defend itself against Russia, but not nearly enough as to not even to win the war, but at least hold on. And then, when finally there were 6 months, there was no help from the United States. Europeans did help, or so on. So Ukraine was able to withhold Russians. So this is a policy of now third year where you cannot formulate what are U.S. objectives in this war. Or maybe he did formulate it, but only for his close circle of advisors or so on, so they're not make it
So
up.
here's an issue I have with Biden. So Biden entered the Senate 50 years ago. He was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He chaired the committee. He's been to Israel more than any other president. But I kind of get the feeling that he thinks that he views that he doesn't get freaked out about stuff. He's been doing it so long that he views things as, yeah, things will be okay. Like, I'm not sure he gets upset enough about threats. I don't know.
So I think it's a different thing. I think what we got used to under Trump was the bombastic yelling, saber rattling, and everything else that Trump did. And don't get me wrong, it was just loud, and he did deter some people that way, but he was threatening and trying to rule bombastically, saying, okay, well, I'm going to come and get you and this and that and the other thing. He never really did anything, as you pointed out, Sasha, but he was very loud about it. And we got used to that. Biden is that old statesman, because if you look at Reagan, if you go from Reagan, Carter, Nixon, even Clinton, all of them, none of them were really loud and bombastic the way Trump was, and would go on TV and visibly threaten other countries about things. Same thing he's doing in the campaign, saying that, well, if you don't pay, I'm going to say, Russia, go ahead and invade. These things were never done by any statesman that we've had before until Trump came along, and we got used to that. And because we got used to that, we feel, okay, well, maybe that's the way it should be. So I'm not used, for me, I enjoyed the statesman side because I didn't enjoy hearing every other day breaking news. The president said this about this country. Now we have to watch and see what this country does in response. Because at some point somebody's going to call that bluff, rather than we used to say. Well, every year we talk about what is it? Walk softly and carry a big stick, or talk softly and carry a big stick. That's literally what Biden's doing in his and Clinton and Bush and other Bush and Reagan and all the other statesmen that we've had have all walked quietly because they took that. Nobody has come onto the scene yelling, "Hey, I'm gonna blow you up."
But so what I'm asking is, Biden's not going to make any big moves until after the election. After the election, when he's a lame duck, he never has to worry about his approval again for the most part. Will he make big moves? And will he say that North Korea allying with Russia is majorly destabilizing and it jeopardizes the entire world? Will he do that? Will he get us? And we have to make, we have to shift our orientation. We maybe have to make sacrifices. We have to do things. Will he do that?
I think that he has a better opportunity of doing that than a Trump does.
Well, sure, because Trump doesn't understand jack shit. Trump likes dictators.
And that's where I guess and this is why this isn't what, like when we're talking about, Mark brought on, when we have some individuals that say, well, I'm going to vote for Trump because of. Trump doesn't care about that stuff. His thing is this Project 2025. And if you want to negotiate with somebody and get things moving, which one, it just boils down to, which one do you think is going to do the right thing? Or which one do you think is going to do the thing for themselves? And if it's going to be about themselves and the self-aggrandizement and glorification, I don't want that as a president. And that's where it comes into play for me. I mean, even if you boil it down to, it's the lesser of two evils, which it's not. It's just, who do you think you can negotiate with? Who do you think, as you said, will take that big stance and actually move the needle really with Ukraine?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, are there people in Biden's cabinet who are looking at this North Korea plus Russia thing and how destabilizing and dangerous it is, and who are running around just being getting people to be as worried as they should be, so we get some action?
So I think that they're not looking at that North Korea and Russia being as destabilizing. I think they're really looking at North Korea or Russia and China being the destabilizing market. Because again, North Korea doesn't have the tech that reaches yet. They were grabbing the tech from Russia. Russia is depleted and begging for anybody to help them. China has technology. China has a lot of global influence. That is where the destabilization comes into play if there's a true Russian-China connection. But with Russia and meeting with North Korea, I think, again, it goes back to, honestly, what Sasha was talking about. I can isolate this tiny country that has no influence and has been ostracized for years if that pairs with Russia, who's in desperation trying to find anything and everything to do some extra saber rattling, I can isolate those two. I can't isolate China. China has too much economic involvement in every market.
All right, so put it like this. So North Korea, crazy. Russia, pretty crazy. Will Biden have the balls to try to team up with China, who we've viewed as an enemy, legitimate, as a competitor as our main competitor? Will Biden team up with China to isolate Russia and North Korea?
I could see that. I just can't see. I could see Trump saying, "Hey, Russia, go ahead and take Ukraine." oh,
Yeah,
North Korea, you're my good buddy. I see Trump doing that, but I
yeah,
don't. I could see Biden trying to negotiate a deal with China to, okay, let's work together globally and tamp down this Russian aggression, and that would tie into what's going on in Europe, and that would be, the European nations being involved, also the African nations being involved. I could see that happening, but I can't see, and that's what it boils down to right now. If we're trying to look at, okay, where's the
I mean, no, no, I mean, Biden obviously Trump would f everything up, but
yeah.
the question is, what will Sasha? What do you think? Does Biden have the gumption to do what it takes to fight the destabilization?
Well, in this situation, whereas now he must have some kind of a strategy what to do, because if he's not and he's going to sleep for foreseeable future, that's not very good scenario for the United States. And even to make some kind of a deal possible with China, it requires energy, time, intelligence, desire to do so. I don't know how much of it today's Biden have. Now the problem is that any deal with China is not going to be an easy one, because Putin, before he went to visit North Korea, he spent some time in China with Emperor Xi. So China was in the know of what's going to happen between Putin and North Korean leader. So I think the deal was because China with Putin in one boat, at least for all foreseeable future, and even if it's not stated on a top level, but it's coming from all the actions that China is very secretly, but help Putin's Russia and so on. So the scenario is because China wants to be friends with the West, because that's where the money is, that's where the trade is, economy, and so on. Let's Russia deal with North Korea only. So that will not affect China directly in any way. So even if China will some kind of secretly will help with the weapons or with finances or anything like that, that will not jeopardize China's standing with the West. So China is good to continue as it was before. China, which is already under sanctions, same as North Korea, now they're teaming us together as a tandem. So now, if somebody hits Russia, North Korea, okay, just go bomb Washington and San Francisco and a couple of cities on your choice, okay? Go ahead, okay? And Russia will say, well, it's North Korea. They decided to do it. We are not very happy about it, but sometimes bad things happen.
So,
So,
is this why Russia teamed up with North Korea? Because to make Russia seem like even crazier, like, yeah, you don't know what I'm going to do. I might drop a nuke, and now I've got an even crazier friend. Is that the
yeah,
deal?
absolutely. This is very destabilizing news for all world, because if Russia was perceived at least as somewhat civilized country and in European tradition with a limited effect, now all this is taken off. It's all now garbage. Now West has to calculate very carefully every its move, every word, everything. So now there would be, you see, Putin created actually on a market of exchangeable goods, he created the new goods. So now when negotiations about Ukraine, sanctions, oh, and what's going to happen with the alliance between Russia and North Korea? Oh, could you please denounce this alliance? Why? What can you do for me lately? What can you done for me lately? Why would I do it? Well, we'll give you this and this, and we'll stop sanctions, and we'll give you half of Ukraine, and we'll give you this and that. Putin can say, well, it's not enough. I need more. I need all Ukraine. I need you completely stop all the sanctions forever and never, ever put them on again. And I'll tell you in next week or two what else I need.
So, is there any way to peel North Korea away from Russia by like being nice to it?
No, it's not going to work.
Why do you want to peel away? Like I said, let the two crazies live together.
Okay, hold on. Let's be realistic about something. The treaty is that Russia will supply technology, weapons, but the missiles technology, cosmos technology to deal with the all these weapons like missiles, like so must name it what North Korea would love to have, but doesn't have it right now. They will have it all in a matter of a year to 2 years' time. So the clock is ticking. You can still do something within first year, 2 years. I don't think that anybody can do anything about that. But first year, okay. But the clock is ticking. This is a situation now. And is Biden the right man to deal with that? Well, we don't have anybody else. So
Right. I mean, and like,
deal with that by default.
yeah, and just look at like, just for fun, look at RFK Jr. Completely. I mean, that guy, there's no way he'll be president, but he is a major third party candidate. That guy's like just as clueless as frickin' Trump is.
Yeah, I'd say it's a non-event.
But yeah, I think. But again, I mean, for me, I would say let the two crazies handle each other, because what will end up happening is one of them is going to step on the other. That's what happens when two crazies get together. And then on top of that, the technology that they're getting from Russia, yeah, it's going to take a while to get there. Plus, Russia's going broke because they've got the war going on in Ukraine. So
this is why it's advisable to speed up these processes. So for Russia to go broke and dissolve itself ASAP. And for that, the strategy of Biden that you give a little bit arms here and some weapons over there. That's
so again, I think the negotiations with China are where everything's going to be important. Because again, Russia right now being broke, and yes, I don't know what's going in the background with negotiate with the other, the supplies and this and that's still having to deal with Congress, and that's going to be a tough thing. Yeah, it's going to be a slow rollout. However, as long as the administration can peel China away, I don't think the two crazies being together is going to be as destabilizing as we may think. Just because, again, you got one that saber rattles that really doesn't have the technology to do much of anything. You don't have long range missiles. You have another one going broke in the middle of a war, begging for some type of money, some type of financing. So they're not going to give away their best technology because they've got to use their best technology in the war. And they're also going to keep on that. So the two crazies are going to end up getting upset. What Russia is depending on is China because of all the money and all the backing and the technology China can pull and China can utilize. Russia's also, I don't doubt Russia's probably looking at, from Turkey to India. They tried to reach out to Israel. They're trying these other entities. Matter of fact, Russia moved a warship towards Cuba. But they're trying these entities, and I don't think they're getting the feedback they need. North Korea said, hey, we'll do whatever for it. I don't think everybody else is doing that because of, one, the U.S. But if the U.S. can pull China and the European Union, there's no one for Russia to even deal with outside of the extremes. And those extremes.
You made me think about some funny scenarios that you said that they sometimes may not get along. You know what I'm thinking about? Let's see if Russia will supply the missile technology, and they have now own long-range missiles. And then North Korean leaders can say to Putin, oh, you know what? Thank you for all that you've done, but you haven't delivered this, and you promised that, and you didn't make it. You know what? In half an hour, we'll use our missiles to bomb Moscow the hell out of it.
According to this nuclear war book, Kim Jong Un thinks that he can survive a nuclear exchange. That he doesn't care super much about his people. We've seen that, and apparently he's built a bunch of bunkers and tunnels.
And Putin has it all too.
Right, but so if North Korea throws a nuke at us and we respond by throwing a nuke back at them, Kim Jong Un thinks, yeah, he might lose a couple million people, but he himself will be safe under 200-300 feet below the ground.
I'm not sure if he ever watched the movie Dr. Strangelove, because if he did, then he would build a real compound, a deep.
He's done that according to the book. Yeah, he's built a ton of stuff deep enough underground that it can survive a nuke.
But he needs 10 women for every man to be there. So has he selected already these people who will go down?
Yeah, that sounded Dr. Strangelove, but he doesn't care. He can take, he's got some underground little city probably where he can take, his 1,000 favorite people with him. And then when they piss him off, he just sends them up to the surface to.
But the proportion still has to be 10 women for every one man who will go down.
Yeah, okay, he's fine with. He can do that.
In order to recreate the population. Okay, so the Earth will be the winter, the nuclear winter, and all the other crazy stuff. But see, in 5, 6, 10 years, the Earth will be livable, and you need population. And how you can create population if you have 10 women for one man? That's how you can create population, and that's Dr. Strangelove was all about.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen this movie, please see it. I watched that movie probably 12 times, maybe even more. Pretty fantastic.
It's actually a really good movie. Good movie.
Yeah.
All right, we got 7 minutes left. Anything we should talk about besides nuclear holocaust?
You know what? I would prefer to talk about it rather than experience. So if you want to talk about this, nothing problem. But what I'd like to talk about is a fantastic European Soccer Championship. I'm watching every game. It's such a pleasure. What a great show. It's just, I just finished before the show, Italy played against Spain. What awesome game. What the technique, what is the power, what is the it's so intelligent game, like every move, every pass. There's so much meaning in it, and you compare it to all this our beloved sports like basketball, hockey. Okay, basketball, hockey, they have their moments, but American football, baseball, to me,
And what the two guys are
that exists in this world. Soccer is fantastic. Right now, actually, in about an hour, the starts of America Soccer Championship, where there will be teams from South America, very powerful Argentina team, Brazil. Well, there are a couple of other teams like Uruguay is pretty good usually, and the United States, Canada starts to play against Argentina.
I forgot his UEFA that was starting today.
Yeah, 7:00 it starts.
I consider this period from after the NBA is done for the season to kind of be like the doldrums of U.S. sports, because we're not even halfway through the baseball season. It's too early to start paying attention because baseball's 162 games.
So I'll admit, I mean, being in sports. Um, it's it's sad when the NBA leaves because it's such an exciting. Well, I mean, I thought this playoff run by the Celtics was great. The NHL playoffs has been really, really exciting. Next game is tomorrow. Edmonton has a chance to tie it up and go 3-3. I would love, honestly. I mean, of course, I'm a Canes fan, but I would like to see Edmonton win because I want to see what happens in Canada. Because right now, Edmonton carries everything, all the hopes and dreams of Canada on its back right now.
It's just to win 2 games. But also we're paying attention to the WNBA.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing I found out about the WNBA is all the players have thirst traps online. You look them up, and like there are like bikini shots of like a lot of these players. Angel Reese, what is she called? Basketball Barbie. She wears like stuff that shows
Barbie.
The girl who just the woman who just tore her ACL.
Britt, Steph Curry's friend.
Anyway, like she's a
Britt.
She's a 6'4" lady. I like a tall lady, and there's shots of her like moving around in a very little bikini, which like is unusual for sports.
But in terms of the actual sport itself, it's actually been great. I mean, honestly, it's been great for years, and so Caitlin Clark coming into the league was a good thing for bringing eyes. But it's also a bad thing because those eyes have become obsessed with her, and they're starting to use her and Angel Reese in kind of a race battle. We got to get out of that. On top of that, we've got to get out of just believing that the league didn't exist before Caitlin Clark. I mean, there's Asia Wilson right now who's dominating the league. She's leading the league in points. You've got the Connecticut Sun, who just only lost 1 game. And that game, they went 9-0 and then lost, and then they've won every game since. They're just destroying people. I mean, the league is in a great place in terms of the amount of the players that are there, the actual play itself. Like how people forget that Caitlin Clark right now is playing with the reigning Rookie of the Year from last year, who came out of South Carolina. And Boston has been dominating. The reason she's still a great player, and honestly, I think she's the best player on the Indiana Fever right now because she is so physical on the block, and she can grab rebounds. She can put the ball up against contact, and it helps her out having Caitlin Clark because of the inside-out game. But dear Lord, that Boston, she is great.
Also, if you want to go to a game, like you can sit courtside for less than $100, which would if you want to see the Lakers, it's probably $1,500, $2,000 to get a courtside seat.
Yep, it's crazy.
There is not the same quality of play if you compare Lakers to this. I wish women's basketball, if they would lower net a little bit, and 10 centimeters would
No, but like, all right, so there's not as many players who can dunk, but dunking isn't everything.
Exactly. Dunking is a big part of the game.
If you take the quality of play, honestly, yes, the men are a little bit more physical. Bennett, come here. Oh, now I got a little.
Okay, but there's a crazy thing about the games, which is the women don't score as many points as the men do. And it's not that they score, it's not because of their shooting. It's because a woman's game is only 40 minutes. A men's game is 48 minutes. So, which is, I don't know why they don't equal it up. That's
actually all European basketball is a 40 minutes, not 48. And men's team in Europe, it's 40 minutes.
And they should probably do that here because 82 games times 48 minutes, that tears people up. And in the NBA, there's always a tie. Like one team takes a 25-point lead, but there's always a time in the third quarter, fourth quarter where that lead goes to like 5 points. So why, what was the whole first half about if the lead if it's gonna be basically tied after 3 quarters?
That's
So
why in European basketball, the possession of the ball is very important thing. They are very careful about passes, about throwing. There are 3 points is very seldom being scored in Europe because it's a risky move, and there are not so many tall people in Europe playing basketball. So they are very possessive of the ball, and of course they score much less. Let's face it, than
the European basketball, and it's the same thing in women's. And in all honesty, the skill level in terms of men's and women's, it's just a physicality and a speed difference, just because of the just the body differences. But the skill level in women's basketball, they're pretty, shooting wise. Good lord, they can hit from basically anywhere. But in terms of Euro basketball, the big thing about European basketball is it's a lot more physical than what goes on in the States. In the States, in the NBA, they cater a lot. Same thing with not the WNBA as much yet. This is the sad part about Caitlin Clark right now, because people don't understand the game and they're trying to, somebody bumped her. Well, that happens every game.
it's not a ballet. It's a basketball.
And so the European League is so much like FIBA is so much more physical. And so it's cool to watch the physicality of the FIBA League, because, they don't cater to, that's a star, I must call a foul because it's a star.
How many games in the season over in Europe?
How many games?
How many games do they in a season?
Really, I'm not sure.
Because like the NBA, you got to get through 82 games and then like 2 months of the playoffs. And I'm wondering,
it's probably less. It's less. And don't forget they play 40 minutes a game instead of 48. So
it says there are 48 games. That's just in FIBA. But then when you look at the other pro leagues and just like soccer or football, you have the other other clubs that you play in. So you play a lot of basketball.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that, like, if you got a shorter season and shorter games, maybe they can afford to be a little bit more, more physical contact. I would think that, we know that, like, players like LeBron, he wants to make it through a year and then another year and play with his kid.
But LeBron is, this $1 billion man, and the NBA knows that he's a $1 billion man. You gonna call a foul to protect LeBron so he doesn't get hurt, because you don't want your $1 billion contract man to be out there.
Yeah,
and we're going to have some folks that are going to get those NBA contracts shortly, because the draft will be next week, just like the debate will be next week as well. But it's time for us to wrap up. I did hear part of y'all's conversation, but we're having a busy event at Haytime. But I did hear y'all's conversations around what might happen with the debate and some of the other political conversations. But I know we'll be back next Tuesday with another World Politics, and we'll be back on tomorrow with World Edition. So, and we've also got Tasha Shaw, because I did hear y'all talking about the Russia situation. So Ukraine, Russia, and China will be discussed on tomorrow as well at 11 o'clock. But right now it's time for us to get on out of here, and I'll get back to this event as well as doing Coco's show also.
Right,
y'all having a delightful conversation.
Bye, baby.
Bye-bye.